Hey, everybody. Do I say everybody every single time? Well, too bad. Hey, everybody. Thank you so much for being here. There's so many people that are online already. This is Sidebar TV and sidebartv.com with the show called Sidebar with Nico LaHood and George Araujo. And I will give their formal introductions in a minute, but I just want to tell you, if you have not told your friends, send in your name now, because I'm going to just yell at you personally, one by one. Tell them to go to YouTube. Tell them to go on Facebook, X. We have so many different platforms, but we want new people. And I have to say, especially because I have two 20-something daughters, we want to get the young people interested. I know my daughters are probably asleep right now, but I force them to listen and watch the show afterwards, because it is so important that you brainwash your kids. Don't let anybody else brainwash them, because with what's going on in the world right now, you don't want vulnerable kids. You know, I know you both have very, very strong children that have been taught right from wrong, and it's not embarrassing to say that it is right from wrong biblically on this planet Earth. It's still right from wrong, no matter what you look at. If it's politics, if it's customer service, if it is finding a parking place in a lot and getting cut off, and people don't know that there really is a right and wrong. It's just not like some good karma or bad karma.
Yeah, but everyone's definition is different, so you have to win the debate of ideas. And so my loving correction would be, I don't want to brainwash my kids. I want to teach my kids to critically think, and then they get to the right conclusion based off our upbringing.
Very good. That's a very smart way of
That's
putting
your definition of
it.
brainwashing. But I mean, but I know what you were joking. I know what you meant by that. I want your kids need to critically think. People need to critically think. What does that mean? Spar with ideas in your mind. Not all ideas are the same.
I can't hear Nico for some reason. It's just me. I'm sorry.
Might
I don't mean to.
It's all right. You're good. You're good. Maybe
Okay.
your thing's off.
Okay.
She's having problems this morning.
I am. I brought you the wrong notebook. We don't have any.
No, it's okay. No, you just got to critically think. You got to think through ideas, and if you can't critically think through ideas, then you're going to get screwed. And so, not all ideas are the same. So I debate ideas with people. I don't like to. Labels are another thing. You know how I talk about tribalism, and you're in my tribe versus your tribe, and your tribe's always wrong and my tribe's always right. I can't stand that shit. Look, are your ideas good? And are your ideas going to bless the vast majority of people? Not everybody's going to like everyone's ideas. I get that. But first of all, for me, because I live in this country and I'm a proud American, the ideas of our structure, the founding fathers, our initial ideas, these ideas of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, what do they mean? Are those good ideas? Do they hold up against other ideas? We're going to talk about a conflict of ideas and other people bringing ideas in. When we talk about Dearborn, Michigan, and some of these votes and these elections that just happened recently up there up north. And so that's it. So I want my kids to be all in on the worldview that we have, which is a biblical worldview, but not blindly. I mean, I don't. We have an informed faith. I have blind trust in God. I do. I don't understand what He's doing all the time, but I trust His character and His wisdom. Right. That's what I do. I don't have to understand it, but I trust Him, and I believe I'm going to be with Him for eternity when I leave this earth. But we have an informed faith, and I can we can do a whole talk on that, George. What do you mean?
Mind,
do you regret saying that, Karen?
No,
it's okay.
Brainwash is good to me. When children or tiny little kids, brainwash to me means repetition of giving them the reason why, and not necessarily, I
know what you mean.
Okay.
Well, little kids aren't taught. You're not born hateful. You're taught to hate. Yes. And so that's the brainwashing you're talking about.
But even in second grade, my kids were coming home and saying, "This is what a teacher said," and I was like, "That's wrong." That's that's, and it was because of what the repetition of the things that I would teach them and say to them, and I was like, happy and proud that they could tell
repetition
right from wrong.
is lifestyle. I mean, I can't tell you how many times when I talk to Zeit or any of the kids, shake hands, firm handshake, look in the eye, yes sir, no sir, yes ma'am, no ma'am, not just when you feel like it, all the time. Yes, what? Ma'am, yes, Bobby. Yes. And so you're talking about repetition. It's just lifestyle. Yes. It's worldview. It literally irritates the shit out of me if a man. I know some women don't like this, but doesn't open the door for a lady, walks in front of a lady, doesn't stand up when a lady walks in. Now that's just the way I was taught, and that was over and over in my mind. Now it's part of my worldview. It's this reverence for women. They should be revered and elevated and, of course, respected. And so that's just, I don't, maybe that's your definition of brainwash.
Well, and I'm talking about when they're little, but there is some brainwashing going on now of the young people. Isn't there? I feel like there is.
Yeah, I think the difference really is between, at least biblically for us in our home, between instruction and indoctrination. So we want to instruct our kids in what we believe, and we try to explain part of instruction on why we believe it. And part of that invites, independent verification. That it's okay to have your beliefs challenged and to understand why you believe what you believe so that you can defend it. Indoctrination is very different. It pumps information into people. And I say that loosely, information. And then it discourages independent verification. It discourages questioning. That's very different. It's a very different spirit and a very, very different content and very different outcome. So that's the difference. Maybe the indoctrination is what you're talking about ultimately when it comes to sort of brainwashing, because that is what it is.
I know,
right?
And that's a very harsh term to use for your own family and for kids, but you do want them to know the way you think and the way you want to raise them.
Well, the Bible reads that way.
Yeah, but Proverbs 22:6, start a child up in the way they will go. When they get older, they will not depart from it. That's just a good idea.
So then where did everybody go wrong with all the young people today being really brainwashed or indoctrinated?
George and I talk about this all the time, and you ask questions. I mean, it's a home, it's a family, it's a parent, it's a family nucleus, not taking control of their children's mind and worldview, not being informed themselves. So when the world comes with questions, and I love questions. There was no question off the table. We raise our kids differently, maybe. Where I talked raw in front of Maya before she's going to be 18 in September, but when she was 14, I said, look, the world's going after her mind. I'm gonna go after her mind. And so I didn't say, oh, you're a Christian. Why? That's just the way my parents are a Christian. That's a crappy answer. I want her to be a Christian and a biblically minded woman because she's all in herself. Now, that's where parents believe a certain way, but I always encourage questions. There was no question off the table. There's nothing we don't talk about. We merge our politics into how we represent our advocacy, which is in your vote. And so that's why I always tell people I'm not a Republican, I vote Republican. Because, that's not my identity. I'm a Christian. I'm a Christ follower first. That's why we criticize Republicans, we criticize conservatives, because I'm more about the idea, not the label or the tribe.
Yeah.
And whatever label or whatever platform accepts the ideas, and we're going to talk about like Islamic ideas and atheist ideas,
but
and Hindu ideas.
That has to be taught.
Yeah.
And there was a time when we were taught that. Nico came up in an educational tradition in the United States that I came in, which is that you learn how to critically question things. You critically accept things. You don't uncritically accept things. So, but you've got to be taught how to ask questions, skills of logic, how to think, so that you can develop these kinds of skills to get at the objective truth of something. So it's not just something you feel or something you want to be, but it's something that actually is. It's freestanding on its own. And so you're taught that. The American educational system has been second to none from the beginning. And that's not been the case for the last 3 decades. That's the problem. We've lost that tradition of critical thinking. Now we are indoctrinating kids into believing having preconceived notions about something. So it's some questioning narrative is automatically dismissed offhand. That's not instruction. That's not education. That is indoctrination.
I mean, half of those kids in my mind, and this is a very general statement, but that were part of those protests, like at Harvard or some of those other Ivy League schools, they were asked, like, what does from the river to the sea mean? And they didn't even know what that meant. That's what they were told to say.
Young people want to be part of a movement, and I think that's a noble idea or goal. But what does it mean? I mean, there's got to be a principle behind it. There's got to. What do you truly believe in? And when I talk to young people, and even older people these days, they'll repeat a phrase, a talking phrase, but they won't really give a principle behind it. I like to believe that when I share, when I debate, even in my office with my law partners or whoever, where I stand on things, I can give, whether you agree with it or not, I can give you a principle, an idea behind it that I will root back to a biblical worldview. And it's funny you say that, because we're going to talk about indoctrination actually today when it comes to, the COVID issue with Bobby on CNN, and then of course these voting situations and in Dearborn and Islam and this takeover and what's happening in the UK. So it's funny you went down this road, but I think it was appropriate to do that. To set the tone.
If we could stop for a second, and I'm going to introduce Nico and George to everybody that is just now joining. I see a lot of new names. And as usual, I thank everybody for being here today, including Alamo Talk.
Alamo Talk.
Susie, Randy, Mary, Susan Clifford. Thank you so much for being here. And please, all kidding aside, we would love for you to tell your friends, family about Sidebar on Saturday mornings at 9:30. And it's just, of course, we want to hear the views of Nico and George, but I know that when I come in here on Saturdays, I feel like affirmed, because I've been working all week. I've been in my little bubble, and I'm like, am I wrong? And I just asked George a question before we started, and I'll ask it again in a minute. But every week you can come here and you can hear the discussion between the former Bexar County District Attorney, which I'm always blown away by, Nico LaHood, trial lawyer. I mean, it is a freak thing. Come
How
on.
did this dipshit become DA?
No,
that's a translation there, guys.
Well, I have to say that I had my own thoughts about Susan Reed, but like in the beginning, I was like, this guy that's got arrested for drugs, he's never going to win.
Yeah.
Anyway, trial lawyer, managing partner of LaHood Norton Goss Law Group, and George Araujo, and I'm so sorry you have to join this group, George, scholar, former chemist, pharmaceutical researcher, and director. So yeah, we are talking about a bunch of things today, including the Democratic Socialists of America, Hormuz, and I am tired of the deals that Trump is or isn't making. I'm sorry, I'm just off on that. And RFK Jr. on CNN. But the big one, I guess, is, wow, I guess, to me, there has to be some sort of like growing concern among moderate Democrats that maybe nominating all these far left candidates in these key races is, I don't know, is it pulling away from what it was, and is there any going back?
I don't know. I mean, that's going to be on them. I really hope. As you know, when I ran for office, I was under the platform of the Democrat Party. Back when you could be a blue dog or a yellow dog, a conservative Democrat, which they're out there. Trust me. But they're not running for office because they can't win a primary. Yeah. And so, what's is true? I mean, so he's the El-Sayed, whatever his name is. I mean, he's the Democrat nominee. The polls had him winning by like 9 or 10 points, and he ended up winning a little bit over 1%. He won by. I think what this shows to me is that the Democrat establishment, the traditional Democrat Party, is losing control. I mean, they are. Even her Governor Whitmer went in all in with Stevenson or whatever her name was. Kind of an interesting lady, but
Haley Stevens.
Yeah, and she sounds funny, right? Yeah. She sounds like Chris Farley, but so
right.
So you went all in with her because I think they know that these are extreme views. These are those 80-20, 90-10 positions that the vast majority of Americans don't believe in. Defunding the police again, open borders. People have learned the difference. He's for abolishing ICE, defunding the police. He's very open about his Islamic faith, which that's fine, but to implement Islamic ideology, there's the ideas again, which includes Sharia law and all the other things, into our constitutional republic is not conducive for the Western culture, and we can talk about that. And so he hangs with a guy named Hassan Piker who supports communist ideas. Hassan Piker said something stupid as shit as saying America deserved 9/11, and when asked about it, El-Sayed didn't denounce that and did not separate himself from that. So then you must be adopting that. So there's just a lot of things to talk about. But I think what it says for now is that I wish the Democrat Party, to my friends like Alamo Talk and other people, would take back the party, because this is not where it goes. Because then where do those people go? Do they become independent? Do they still keep voting Democrat just because of the tribe and the label that I'm so identified with that Democrat label that no matter who takes over, I'm gonna because look, they ran out RFK, they ran out Tulsi Gabbard, they've run off Joe Manchin, they've run off all the people that, I mean, they would have run off an Obama in 2008. If Obama was the Obama in 2008 today, he would not win a primary in certain areas. Guaranteed. I mean, look, Clinton, Bill Clinton, Schumer, Weinstein, Reid, all the Democrats of the old, where I was, more people leaned in that direction, which you could still be, like I said, a blue dog, are gone.
It's interesting because I think he's the architect of all this nonsense.
Who is?
Obama. And so I think this nonsense, this craziness, the divisions that we see, and really sort of the rise of this virulent, visceral anti-Americanism. I mean, you just see that just precipitate significantly since the 2008 election. I mean, we often say he ran as a moderate and campaigned as, to the left of Lenin ideologically in many ways. Certainly in my view. You can literally go back to 2008 in the aftermath. You can see a spike in divisions in the country, particularly along racial lines. And I had huge hopes for the guy. I didn't vote for him. I didn't vote for him because he wasn't vetted. I didn't know anything about the guy, and I was skeptical. But in the aftermath, I think anyone who reads the news and doesn't see that there was a spike in just animosity along racial lines isn't following along. And so I think he's the architect of this nonsense. We'll save that for another show. But Nico, I was going to say, if he ran, I think he would be, I think you would see all the masks coming off, because now it's okay. Now it's culturally acceptable to say the most vile things against the United States of America or against its allies. And so it's perfectly acceptable. And so now you can ascend to higher office. And so now these things are almost, as I say, articles of faith or litmus tests in the Democrat Party to get elected to Congress. What the hell is Rashida Tlaib doing in the United States Congress? When we talk about the squad, this is a group of individuals who are very forthright about their disdain for traditional America. I mean, they're not subtle. They're forthright about it. They're using clear, stark terms about their disdain for America as founded, and they want to see nothing more than its abolishment. And so, can you imagine that? I think Obama today, I think all the masks would come off. And I think if he was out there campaigning... So
your position is that he came in kind of as a Trojan horse, and he campaigned one way to get in office, but then governed a different way.
A man for the times. He suited what is that what you're saying? What Americans could stomach at the time. Americans can stomach a lot more because it's been normalized. Got it. That's the point. And it's a long time. I mean, people think it was recent. I mean, it's hard to believe the guy was elected 18 years ago, going on 19. So that's a long time. I mean, that's a generation. Those are young adults now, people who were born at that time. So they came up through that school system and that ideology. And you can see it changed everything. You can see it's changing entertainment. It's changed the American church, even in ecclesiastical circles, certainly in American politics. You can see a significant increase, an inflection point in divisive language. And I think it's unfortunate.
Well, I mean, if there's a silver lining, it's really it's putting things in clear view now. I mean, so does this make it a more competitive race? Michigan is an interesting state. It's a battleground state. But, I mean, now you're saying, okay, this is what you're voting. Now, where do those conservative, middle-of-the-road Democrats, what do? Do they vote based off labels? I mean, because if you really analyze what this guy stands for and what people in the squad, I mean, every American, Republican and Democrat, should be against that and repudiate. I had a debate the other day with somebody in my office about that kind of stuff and these extreme views and that's boogeyman arguments. They're not boogeyman arguments. I know that's your talking point. They're not. These are real issues that need to be talked about. And all Americans should come together and say, look, these are our rules of engagement. You're not changing them. This is going to be our platform, and here's going to be our parameters as Americans, all of us. Like, what's the American way? Baseball and apple pie. That's not the way it is anymore. I mean, there were certain things that were just American. You know, that we celebrate the 4th of July celebration, family time, nuclear family, whatever it is. And that's changed so much. And so when people bring in other ideas, you just have to vet those ideas. How does it compare to the Constitution and our founding ideas and documents? And then what is it going to do to the vast majority of Americans?
That's right.
I believe in freedom. That's an idea. Now there used to be a time when the Democrats believed in freedom also, freedom of speech. I disagree with you passionately, Karen, but I'm going to fight to the death for your right to say what you say, even though I think what you're saying is disgusting. They had an idea. They weren't influenced by their feelings. That was an idea, free speech. And that free speech means what? Free thought. And they believed that. I mean, there were times where Democrats championed the KKK, that disgusting organization, to march in front in the streets. Because the idea that, man, these people are disgusting. I wouldn't piss on them if they were on fire, but they have a right to the idea of free speech. That's an idea. That's something, it's principle-based. It's not like that anymore. And so that's what I believe in ideas, and I wish that we'd kind of gather around and come together on ideas. And I think that would distract us from these labels and these tribes that we put ourselves in.
So if their views are so disgusting, why do they keep winning? One.
Where?
And Ed on Facebook says Muslims should not be allowed to serve in Congress if they openly hate this country.
So what Ed is saying, that's an interesting point, because Ben Carson said something similar. Ben Carson said years ago, and got so much shit for it, but think about what he said. He's just not very articulate and passionate in his talk. He said a Muslim cannot be the president of the United States, and he took so much shit for that. But think about that, because a true adherent Muslim, Islamic person cannot pledge to defend and protect the Constitution. They have a different mindset. Now, if you say, well, I'm a Muslim in religion only, but not in... But remember, Islam is a political movement wrapped in a religion, not the other way around. That's just a fact. And we can debate that on another time if you want to. And so that's what he was referencing. I'm not going to pledge. That's what they swear into the Quran. They don't swear into the Bible, and they say words about, I protect and defend the Constitution, as they want to change the Constitution. So the idea of well, what are the ideas in the Constitution that are you protecting in? And so that's why he said what he said. So what Ed is saying, there's a point to that, and that needs to be vetted out and flushed, and we can debate that back and forth. Bring your evidence, I'll bring mine, and somebody else can mitigate that. But yeah, I see the point he's making. That's what Ben Carson was talking about back then when he made that statement.
Yeah, true enough. And you can see it play out. I mean, who are the people that this guy surrounds himself with? I mean, look at who he campaigned with. I'm glad that you brought up Hassan Piker. This guy this isn't some streamer. He's a virulent anti-American.
Yeah.
I mean, never mind Israel. He's decidedly anti-Israel, but he is decidedly anti-American. To say that he's glad that you had millions of illegals come across our borders and that they're here to quote unquote fuck sisters, American sisters and daughters, and that they're here to abolish the white race, bitch. Okay, to campaign with this guy, not be apologetic about it, to adopt, I mean, you're in essence adopting where this guy's coming from, his platform. Yeah, that's right, it's guilt by association. So this guy he was asked multiple times about it, and about Piker's commentary. And I'm scratching the surface. Piker is openly hateful of the American system and what America stands for. He is deeply racist, rabidly pro-Islamist. He is definitely pro-China. He has praised Mao Zedong on a number of occasions. He's gone to China. He's praised China. I mean, this guy is as excited about Mao Zedong and what he did as anyone here would be about George Washington, a true American. So that's who we're talking about here. And Syed had multiple occasions to distance himself or to say, I don't agree with that. I don't align with that. I'll take Hassan Piker's support. Why not? I mean, it's a vote. I'll take the vote.
Yeah, sure.
But I want nothing to do with those proclamations, because I mean, it doesn't. Never, not at one point did he dismiss any of those things. Not one time. I want to know why. He's been asked multiple times about the Khamenei's in Iran. Al-Khamenei, who we just killed, of course, a couple of months ago. He will not align with that, with the support for the killing of the Iranian supreme leader. Why? I mean, that seems pretty clear. This man was a hateful human being who presides over an authoritarian regime that has really, yes, murdered his own people, not to mention countless Americans, and launched attacks against American interests in the Middle East. I mean, what is so difficult here? What's so confusing? What's so ambiguous about this? So there's a pattern of not just hating America, but also not dismissing statements about things that should be morally clear. Never, not once. Why?
But the atmosphere lends to this. To George's point earlier, I on a feed, someone had sent me something, and then the next thing was an old Archie Bunker, I'm aging myself, clip. Him and Edith were discussing something, and I guess she wanted money for something, so she's talking about, well, how much would you charge? Do you think it's worth for me to work every week? And blah, blah, $1? Yeah, man, almost $1. I mean, it was really, Archie Bunker was an interesting person. Right. And Archie at some point called her a communist. She said, I am not a communist. I mean, we were very defensive towards communism. Now it's accepted because people are ignorant. They haven't studied true communism. That's how communists work. They promise you a bunch of shit. They steal it from somebody else. They give it to you to get your loyalty. Then they get their control over you. And now they have the masses control. And now they crush the person that resists them. I mean, it's the same playbook. And we're stupid. And we're stupid to it because we don't study it. If I'm fighting you, I'm gonna bring everything back to combat sports. Sorry. If I'm gonna fight you in the ring or in the cage, and I know you have a great left hook, but I don't study it, I have no idea, then I'm gonna get caught by your left hook because I haven't studied you. I haven't looked at. We're not studying the past. We're not looking at the fight films and looking exactly how communism works and how it's taken over and what it does. Same thing with the Islamic movement as well. And you're not anti anything just because you resist a set of ideas, like, a phobe, and they want to throw a phobe and obia on things. And I had this debate with my buddy the other day. I go, tell me once when someone has been called a Christian phobe. When has anyone been called a Jesus phobe? Never once. You put a phobia on everything else, except when it comes to either conservative or Christian ideology, and we accept it like dumbasses. That's the problem. And we can't counter with a good logical argument to try to meet someone where they're at, welcome their dissent, and then respond with an apologia, right? Like Paul did in Acts, with an apologia, defense to your position. So, and it all comes back to George's point from years and years and years to academia. We were losing the battle in the schools, and that's why it was so important. And that's why I'm kind of, disappointed with how things have gone and what we're really doing to combat that.
That's the weird irony here. This is a guy. This should be an American. Really a story of American triumph. This guy came up through the American educational system. He comes from a wealthy background, a wealthy neighborhood in Michigan. Median income's like over 120 grand. I mean, he went to University of Michigan, did very, very well, went to medical school on a Rhodes Scholarship. This guy, this is an American dream story. And yet he comes out of the system hateful over the very institutions and the very opportunities they gave him the platform that he has right now.
Do you see their playbook? Him and the Mamdamis of the world. Be careful. The Gavin Newsom's. This guy's been exposed. He's too much of a liar, and he's not good with his own bullshit. But these guys are the future. The Mamdamis and this guy, articulate, well spoken, informed. At least with their point, misinformed, but they're still informed, and they're persuasive, and they're appealing to a feeling, and they're not. And they know how to manipulate the masses, and that's real.
But the thing is, and if you know anything about his home life, you'll understand why. So he comes in with preconceived notions about America, intensely pro-Islamist, which is problematic ideologically for a number of reasons. I want to say something that may come across controversial, but I want people to noodle it around, including you, Nico, because in just a couple of moments. So he comes in with preconceived notions because that's his home life. But here's the thing. After all of these years in the American academic system, these preconceived notions about evil America are reinforced. The American academic system that really should be sort of a standing apologetic for the goodness of America, for the righteous cause of the American constitutional system. Our educational system should gird up our students to be productive, proud patriots, not blind patriots. We understand America's flaws because every nation has its flaws. But on the overall trajectory of history, America is a story of triumph. It's a story of glory, really. I mean, really, it's sort of good over evil. There have been plenty of opportunities in the history of this country where we could have gone the wrong direction. But because of the constitutional system bringing us back really to a Judeo-Christian ethic that elevates human beings, regardless of their background or status, color of their skin, ethnicity, whatever, those ideals, those values are embedded in the Declaration of Independence and the constitutional system of the country. And so this is something to rejoice over. This guy comes out of our American system with his craziness reinforced. That's a tragedy. And then so let me get this straight. When he's sworn in, I don't think he's going to win, just on the numbers. I'm not saying he can't. He certainly can. I'm just saying if I had to bet right now, the poly markets are against him. What you just said was not trivial. I mean, he had double-digit leads. He had maybe a point and a half, 15,000 votes. That's a significant difference here. So what's going on there? So it's a very different story when you're going for Senate than some representative, some district. Right. So I think just on the numbers, I don't think he'll triumph over Mike Rogers. But Mike Rogers better not sit on his ass. He better be out there every day calling out the lunatic policies of this guy. Yep. But for him to come up through the American system and end up with his crazy views reinforced, what does that say about us?
Yep.
Until we get the classroom back, El-Sayed's are going to be a feature, not the bug. This is a serious problem. Now, when I say this, his platform is decidedly anti-American, meaning it's against the American constitutional system. Hassan Piker, nuts. Rashida Tlaib, absolutely insane. So I want to know, does the Constitution protect people who want to abolish the Constitution? In other words, you have a platform that runs, I mean, the DSA is saying what?
Say it
Get
right
rid of the
out.
Senate?
Right.
Really get rid of the three branches of government.
Yeah.
Get rid of the Senate, get rid of the executive.
That's a great question.
And reshape entirely the legislative into basically being a uniparty, right? So they want to get rid of core American political institutions, which are really sort of the framework of the Constitution. So is it okay for someone to run on a platform vested in abolishing the Constitution to be elected to office? Is that all right? Because I don't think the Constitution has any mechanism for its abolishment. Article 6 says it's the supreme law of the land, and that every official has to not just support the Constitution, but swear to what? Defend
and protect the Constitution
from its enemies, foreign and domestic.
Yep.
And if you have a disdain for the Constitution, I don't know how in the world.
Unless you have a series
you would
of
say that's not disdain,
constitutional
sorry.
amendments, and then the definition of the Constitution changes.
Yeah, Article 5 makes provisions for amendments, but there are certain rules, right?
You said that, but that's the only way. Because if you change what the Constitution means and what is defined, it's all about the definitions.
Sure.
Well, then yes, the Constitution allows for it to be changed, and you can abolish it, and so to speak, in so many terms.
Through revolution. Right. But not that defends, a revolution that defends, which is really, because you have revolutionary language in Declaration of Independence. And it does leave, interestingly enough, if you read the Declaration of Independence, it does leave room that if at some point you need to disband those cords, it does leave room for additional revolutionary acts, but that's to reinstate
The Constitution as originally
So
planned.
think about that for a moment. I want to know. I actually want to know. That's a legal question. I don't personally believe that there's any mechanism. I'd love to ask Patrick this question.
Patrick. I'll ask Patrick.
Is there any mechanism to abolish the Constitution? The Constitution, I would argue, no. Article 5 makes provision for amendments, but even those amendments have guardrails. And they respect the integrity and the structure of the Constitution. We cannot, so it raises the question. We have officers right now, well, not even officers of the court so much, Nico, but we have elected officials who are overtly against the Constitution of the United States. Their platforms read that way, they talk that way, they're even voting that way. Why are they in office, and why is there no mechanism to get their asses out of there?
And why do they keep getting so close to winning? I mean, some say that Mamdani and New York is not symbolic of the American way anymore because they are so liberal and socialist. I guess it's okay for New York. That's them. But when you start seeing El-Sayed getting this close, why are they winning? Is it because Americans aren't showing up to vote? Is it because they're cheating? Is it because Americans are loving the idea? I don't understand why they keep getting this close and moving in.
Well, it's a long discussion. I mean, academia has something to do with it. If you change someone's definitions in their mind, then they're going to be
I know,
subjected
but why
to
is it the highest educated people are the ones that are eating this up?
I think that's the issue. I think Karen's, I don't think you stumbled onto it. I think you pointed out something that we've been talking about over the last 15 minutes. I know we need to move on to another topic, but perhaps we can capstone it, Nico, by saying this is the issue. There's a lot of important issues. We can talk about immigration. We can talk about economics. All those things are critical. But the issue is the American classroom. So what we're doing is we're graduating persons by the millions every year. And when they come out and they hear an El-Sayed, when they hear a Piker, when they hear a Rashida Tlaib, when they hear an Ilhan Omar, when they hear a Brandon Johnson in Chicago or a Karen Bass in LA, when they hear this language that just mocks the country and just diminishes the country, and everybody's racist, and it's all because of white people. When they hear that, it resonates because they've been taught that.
I know, brother, I'm with you.
So they gravitate
That's
to
why
it.
you're taught to hate. Just like
That's
kids that grow up, they're not taught to hate their neighbor. Like kids will play with anybody, and so but what has this administration done to change that though? It's a question because he ran on that. You have to ask that question. You can't assume you're going to have 8 years, 12 years, 16 years.
He's busy in negotiations with the Strait of Hormuz.
Oh, well, don't get me started. I
Is
guess we
that
can
what's-
move to that one if you want to. But
Yeah.
I'm just saying what's
Yeah.
been done. I mean, that's a legitimate question. That's not a shit on Trump deal. That's just what's been done. Because if these are issues that we all agree on and identify are something that is threatening the very fabric of our country, which will ultimately affect Senate races, Congress races, presidential races. I mean, to think that AOC and these people can dominate a party that once believed in classical liberalism and free speech and was proud to be American. I mean, just think about that. I mean, it's just a matter of time.
And they came out. Piker, for instance, I mean, just fresh off of this El-Sayed victory, said, "Don't even think about this mending fences notion, where they're now Sayed needs to mend faces and unify people." But Piker said, "Absolutely not. We're not mending fences with anybody."
You're talking about the Democrats that didn't vote him?
He is declaring a revolution over the Democrat Party in stark terms, and I'm telling you, they're all doing that.
Wow.
And so the very first person, we've said it many times in here, the very first people they're going to go after is the establishment Democrats, and they're going after them right away. You and I are second on the list. First on the list is the very people that have accommodated this nonsense over the last 15, 20, 25 years in the age of Pelosi. Okay, this gender confusion and gender fluidity, this creation of this ambiguity at the heart of the nuclear family, putting policies in place, tax subsidized dollars, using the American classroom, the American Medical Association, all institutions now have adopted this insanity of gender confusion. Congratulations, over the last 20, 25 years, you've managed to do that and create confusion right through the heart of the American system, through the nuclear family. That wasn't Piker. That wasn't El-Sayed. That wasn't Tlaib. That was done long before then. The hating of the country, the racism narrative over and over and over again. That was long before those guys.
That's right.
They've created an environment where this lunacy is now easily accommodatable, and I think it's only going to get worse. But he's being open about that. We are not mending fences. We are going after you.
So that means Whitmer's next. She's the governor. She supported Stevenson.
I know.
But this is what happens, man. You can't have a pet scorpion. Oh, I got a wonderful pet rattlesnake. No, you don't. You own a rattlesnake. You don't have a pet that's a rattlesnake. There's no relationship with a rattlesnake.
There's no
or a scorpion.
petting.
There's no petting. You're not going to lay down and cuddle with your scorpion. So
There's some group, I was just reading about it, called Third Way, and they are coming forward to say they're starting this new campaign because, of course, they believe DSA poses a serious threat to Democrats. Their ideas are dangerous. Their politics are toxic, and so they want to reach out to what they're calling the working class people to tell them a better world is possible without their way. And I'm just wondering,
is it a Democrat movement, like to
Yes.
take back the Democrat?
Yes. Yes.
I mean, look, the worst thing for the Democrat Party is losing the Joe Manchins, the Bobby Kennedys, the Tulsi Gabbards, all those people. That's the worst thing that could have happened. And then when I say you lost Biden because he was a chameleon. All these people were chameleons, whether you believe George's theory and other people's, by the way, not just George, of Obama coming in as a Trojan horse, or he read the tea leaves and saw it and was open-minded to this and he lost control of it. I mean, we can discuss that at some other time. I'm just saying that Schumer hasn't changed his mind. The guy's been a dinosaur. You can think he changed his mind in his 60s but key issues, not just on like, oh, okay, maybe on some tax cuts or whatever, this policy or this program, on serious issues. Biden, all these people, they're chameleons and they're survivalists, and that's why they've done it. And then that's what allowed this ideology to usher in and like, oh shit, if we don't run with the bulls, we're gonna get trampled. Let's run with the bulls, even though I don't like where the bulls are running.
I know. I just
That's
heard
right.
Bernie Sanders say he never meant to defund the police until there was no crime, and the only way that they're going to figure that out is like no poverty. So he doesn't mean defund the police now. He means when poverty.
full of shit.
I know, but that's just what you hear from so many of them.
Yeah.
It's like they're twisting it, and it's basically a lie.
Well, if you don't allow them to, look, the message from these guys, from the El-Sayeds and Mamdamis of the world, we're the conservative equivalents. We need to have talent. I mean, look, I'll just talk locally. I mean, there's many local political Republican parties that just any breathing human being that wants to run as a Republican, shit, great, go run as a Republican. That's stupid. I mean, with no vetting,
It is.
with no, okay, are you not only do you believe the thing that we believe when we're advocating the ideas, but can you present them well? Can you appeal? Can you move the needle? I don't need to go to a rah little meeting where it's like, oh, great, go, and then you send them off to get politically massacred. That doesn't do anybody any good.
But why are candidates like Talarico still appealing to people, even though he changes his position like every 5 seconds?
To the taste buds. He's palatable to the taste buds. He tells you what you want to hear. Scripture talks about telling you what your itching ear wants to hear. And then he uses vocabulary that appeals to us, but the definitions, the dictionary doesn't. It's all about the definitions. Now, I think he's being more exposed. I mean, look, Ken has some challenges because, look, you can criticize him for different decisions he's made, rightfully so. I'm going to try to defend things that I don't agree with. But in the end, because I had someone tell me the other day, it's like, oh my God, how could you ever vote for this person or that person or Trump? I was like, I'm not voting for the person. I'm voting for the alleged ideas that they're trying to promote. If I like the candidate, great. That's like a pilon, as we say. It's an extra. But I'm voting for ideas, not for people. And we get stuck on the person versus the ideas.
Yes.
And you like a person's likable, but they have shitty ideas, then I don't want to vote for them.
And they talk in superficial terms. Like Nico's talking about ideologies, but I think Americans are gravitating to this notion of affordability, and they want more jobs and so forth. They want lower rents. They're gravitating to those sound bites, but they don't appreciate the ideology behind those failed promises, because those things sound great, but there's no path to get there. That's the point. They're not presenting a path to get there, at least not a viable path that doesn't create more misery. But Americans don't appreciate the ideology behind those sound bites. They don't, like you were just talking about, Victor David Hanson. I thought you were going to go into that, but maybe we can just refer to the piece. He wrote a great piece saying why communism, communism used to be a slur. Why is it not a slur anymore? Again, I think it's a badge of honor now in the Democrat Party, because there's historical revisionism. They've gone back and they've recouched it. They've reframed it in very friendly terms and in very appealing terms, or it's not taught at all. So it's either totally mistaught or it's totally ignored. So now that backdrop is missing from the average American's analysis on economics or on social policy. And so an American used to be able to hear and say, that sounds like communism. That sounds like it could lead to my loss of individual liberty.
That's right.
So why do ideology ties to that? Well, it's not capitalism, because while imperfect, capitalism is the closest thing to protecting the integrity the integrity and the incentive of the individual. So what does this sound like? Americans used to be educated enough to be able to tie these crazy sound bites to an underlying ideology. I think the same thing is happening with Islam.
Yeah.
So this guy says in the aftermath of the March 12th, I think, terror attack, I'm talking about Al-Sayed, when I think the guy's name was Hamid Ghazali, ran his truck into Temple, Israel in Michigan. Runs a truck. Fortunately, it was filled with school children, but I guess very skilled security forces took him out. So he was asked about it. And he says, well, violence begets violence. What do you expect? In other words, he justified it by saying that this guy had relatives in Lebanon and that he was simply angry and upset because airstrikes by Israel in Lebanon killed some family members. And so somehow it was justified for him in a totally different country to get into a van or a truck and run into a synagogue to kill a bunch of kids. That's what Sayed basically proposed. Was there any... Do people realize the Islamic ideology behind not only deception, but also the advocacy of terror against Israel? Or any American who stands in their way. It's not just death to Israel, it's death to America. So had anybody been curious, they would have found that Ghazali, the guy who was driving the truck. So what family members are we talking about? Here's the deal. Ghazali's brother was a commander for Hezbollah. So now I'm wondering, what the hell was he doing in this country?
Yeah.
No kidding.
So he was let in 2011. In 2011. And he's been in a hotbed of Islamic terror justifying culture, which is Dearborn, Michigan. I know you haven't moved there yet, but that's what's going on. We have an enclave of anti-Americanism in America being given all the constitutional rights of Americans. That's suicide.
That's insane.
What the hell are we doing?
I know, brother.
Why Dearborn, Michigan? Like, why did it all start there? Because of your story, of what you just said? I mean, it's just like, That place is it gone?
You don't have to go too far here in San Antonio.
I
Go to
know.
Wurzbach Medical Center.
Why were there Italian enclaves in early 20th century in New York or in Brooklyn
Look up in Dallas.
or Manhattan?
Go to Dallas,
Right.
Dallas, Texas, up there.
Yeah. But people settle where they settle, and then they begin to coalesce around shared ideas and shared ideals, and they develop political power around that. And that's what we have.
Yeah, no, you're right, George. Karen, where do you want to go next? There's too much to talk about.
I mean, I do want to talk about RFK. I mean, I
do it.
also want to talk about Hormuz, but I think that we are all kind of sick about what's going on with Trump and why he keeps trying to.
But let's talk about RFK, because it's not going to be too long to talk. But I mean, I think this is an example of dogma. I mean, first of all, I mean, I've shared with you guys before. I know Bobby, and I've advocated with him up in D.C. and here locally and in different areas in Tennessee. And I texted him. I said, I loved it, brother. I loved you kicked her ass because, man, thank you for your encouragement. We're praying for you. And he's just so gracious. He's genuine. I don't agree with all his politics, like his political stances on things, but that dude is true, and he has gone through so much to protect families and to be a voice for moms and dads and for children who have been injured. And I just love the way he's been elevated. But dogma to me, I think a good definition, George can correct me if I'm wrong, is a statement of fact that can't be rebutted. So if you have a dogmatic view on something, that you're making this statement of fact that is not open to rebutting. So it's just like these presuppositions. And so what they do is they have this dogmatic opinion, like the girl Dana, whatever her name is, Dana Bash. Dana Bash. I mean, so she took this dogmatic opinion, these positions, and then they appeal to this bullshit authority. So that's what they go, well, and let me tell you what I'm talking about. The studies say, numerous studies say, it's settled. The science says, experts have agreed. What the hell are you talking about? And then when Bobby goes, what studies? Well, they're studies. You're just repeating a talking point, which you've been told to say. Don't say that to me. And she got fluttered and flustered. And the thing about Bobby that breaks my heart for him is he's got that issue with his voice, and he's been using that voice to advocate for families and children that can't speak for decades now. And that's the struggle. That's his thorn, maybe like Paul had. But he does it so graciously and so well. But it's a struggle. You can see it. He's not getting frustrated. I mean, he does get frustrated. Don't get me wrong. He's struggling to talk and to
I
get
get
his
frustrated
voice.
because I want him to say what he wants to say.
And he gets it done. He gets it done. But I just think you saw this left in their mouthpieces. They can't critically evaluate where they went wrong. I mean, if someone says, and I talk to people about this lovingly. I was like, okay, so. Well, who came up with the idea, and do you still believe that we should have worn masks into a restaurant, then take them off when you sit at the table? How does that make sense? As George coughs, get your mask on, George. I mean, who came up with that idea? Or how many times did you go to H-E-B or some supermarket and you had stickers where you're supposed to stand? Who came up with that stupid ass idea? And to George, you always talk about the science. What evidence supports that? But why not reevaluate that and say, you know what, we genuinely thought that was the right thing to do, but we had to course correct. I've heard people say that, Megyn Kelly, other people that said, look, I regret taking the shot. I wish I didn't. I have some side effects from it. And they just say, and they course correct. Yeah. And I think that we should all do that. That's called repentance. We have a repentive heart. I've made poor choices in my life before. If I learn from it, then it's not wasted. Of course, I wish I could take them back, but it's not wasted if we learn from it. That's called wisdom, and you grow in maturity and maturation. But I thought that was an example of just this dogmatic mindset, that this authority, this appeal to authority that's really bullshit. Trust the science. I am science. The doctors say it's well settled. All this other bullshit. And Bobby said, no, Bobby's educated, man. That dude, and you know Bobby.
I've always been a fan of
followed him and the Children's Defense Fund for years, and he goes in prepared.
I like him not just
it?
because he's intellectually competent and very competent, but I like the man. I like the human being. I just like him. He's very likable. He comes across as a person of substance, a moral person, a person who cares deeply about people. And the outrage that you saw was because I think it breaks his heart that people were damaged because of the COVID abuses. And he was trying to disabuse Dana of her bullshit so that she could clearly see the human tragedy behind the exploitation at the hands of government. And I love that he basically pushed back and said the idea that you don't have any curiosity, as to the abuses of government, that you should come in with a skepticism. And so there were three things that I really liked. I think he called her out on Fauci. I thought that was important.
Yes.
I think that was absolutely important.
Yes.
Basically making the point that virtually everything Fauci said was false. when he said that it had come from a wet market, knowing that it had not come from a wet market. Sufficient evidence to conclude that this was a laboratory-born epidemic that ultimately became a pandemic. So he was wrong about that. He was wrong about all the BS about being vaccinated and therefore the disease not being transmissible as a result. He was wrong about that. He was wrong about all the nonsense with the personal protective equipment, and he was particularly wrong in the aftermath of advocating against the personal protective equipment on March 31st of 2020. Literally 30 days later, he's saying the exact opposite.
Yep.
No, cloth and surgical masks do not do not work against respiratory airborne pathogens. There's a reason for that, and we get into virions and bacterial molecules, like I always bring up. So Fauci did an about face in 30 days. Science doesn't work that way, and no, he's not science, particularly because of stupid shit like that. So he called out Fauci. He then called out, like you said, the idea that there was no basis behind her dogma. I can be tunnel visioned,
Yes.
but I can have a pretty well crafted apologetic for my dogma.
Right.
Now, I may only consider what I believe and not your arguments, which is probably makes it kind of weak. But she didn't even know that.
No.
She didn't even know the basis for her dogma. Name me one study. And he was very specific. He said, for example, give me one study that shows that somehow the vaccine protected children, or that it was even necessary for kids.
Yeah.
Name one. Nothing. She had nothing to bring to the table. But ultimately, I think his most powerful argument, I think every American should listen to this part, which I thought was brilliant.
It's like 16 minutes.
And that constitutional rights take priority over public health. That's an important statement. Why do constitutional rights take priority over public health? Notice where they parked most of the time is on the idea of censorship, that dissenting opinions were dismissed during the COVID era.
Yeah.
And those dissenting opinions are constitutionally protected, regardless of whether or not you're worried about a virus. That's the point. Why is that? Because it is only through the enforcement or through the application of those constitutional rights and the practice of those constitutional rights that you can express dissenting opinions to determine whether, in fact, it is a legitimate public health issue. And had those opinions not been dissented because they were protected by the Constitution, we might have actually had a fruitful discussion that would have left us open and would have led to a more constructive policy that would not have led to the deaths of millions of people that we ultimately saw.
I hope people don't lose their, and I hope it's righteous. I hope people don't lose their righteous anger over that. Things were changed. I mean, we have irreversible harm. From people that had to pass away alone, people that gave birth alone, people that missed weddings, families that were divorced, strife that was planted in fear that was implanted into the fabric of our society. I mean, people lost their shit.
Yeah.
I mean, and kids going. The only good, and I'm going to say only, meaning only that I can think of. And George, add to the list. There's only one thing on it. Is when we jokingly, and it's real, when kids are on Zoom at home listening to the shit that their teachers are telling them, and the parents walking by going like, what'd you just say?
Yeah.
Did they tell you that all the time? And then parents started asking questions and going to school board meetings, and they were kicked out of school board meetings. They were called the domestic terrorists. I mean, for a teacher, they were worried about the stuff that you read. And how many videos went around viral of people saying, I'm going to read this during this school board meeting. Don't read that. My kid's reading this. What are you talking about? It's in their library, and but I can't read this to adults, but a kid can read this? I mean, that's the only good thing that came of it. But now what do we do with that information? Do we sit on it because we don't have the courage to fight back? Do we not get involved in politics? That's why this splintering of the Republican side and the conservative side irritates the shit out of me. And why I'm so harsh on, maybe people say harsh, I say constructive on Trump and Republicans, because I want them to do better. Because I believe that grace has been squandered, and now we're in even real trouble.
I think that's kind of why, one of the reasons why the debate was so useful. I think everybody should watch the debate between Bash and it wasn't much of a debate. He just wiped the floor with her, I think.
He did too.
Just on the facts and the tone. But notice, because you're talking about what do we do now, the discussion went there. She actually asked that. So how do you prepare then, she said. How do you prepare for the next pandemic? I mean, that's literally part of your job now, because experts think it's going to happen within the next 10 years again. And here's what Kennedy said. I mean, I think we did virtually everything wrong the last time.
Wow.
She says, but what about now? Having lost that argument, she wants to move to the future now. And he says, well, the principal thing that we need to do is basically what we should have done before, is we need to listen to what's happening to doctors on the ground.
Yep.
There are 15 million frontline physicians around the world. They're mainly now connected through the internet. We can tell on the front lines what's working and what's not. If we had listened to those doctors during the COVID pandemic, we would have saved, listen to this, potentially millions of lives. There were therapeutics out there that were working. There were doctors that were having no deaths from COVID and treating, in some cases, thousands of patients, and we were not listening to them. And instead, we were doing the opposite. That's exactly right. This is why constitutional rights are more important than public health, because had the right to express a dissenting opinion been upheld, we would not have made the fallacious errors that we made with
and you
regard
can't
to
reverse
public
that,
health.
Karen. You can't bring that back.
know.
You don't. I know. I can think of 3 doctors off the top of my head that understood true viruses and how it worked and the pathogen and utilized ivermectin. And on 2 of the 3, they lost 0 patients. And the only one that lost a handful of patients is because they had X amount of comorbidities. I mean, they were really, really sick. I mean, they were subject to the rhinovirus, which is a cold. I mean, they were subject to that. But I mean, and so that's Bobby's point. And that's a shame, and because you can't reverse that. And then they doubled down because then so many people took this shot that now we're seeing. I mean, look, you have cardiologists that have changed their practice, and now they have a whole specialty on youth, on the young, and myocarditis and all the heart problems that young people have now because of this thing.
Yeah.
And instead of just saying, "Man, we got this wrong,"
Right.
That's right. It's such a shame. It was with good intentions. People double down on this dogmatic bullshit, and then it's going to cause more harm down the road. You were going to say something, Karen.
No, I was just going to ask. Several people are asking on Facebook. So, what's going to happen with Fauci?
I mean, who knows? I mean, why? Hold your breath.
The contempt of court vote went forward. That's an important first step. There's a great, by the way, I think everybody should listen. We put out that video, right? This clip. Nico's talking through the notion of contempt of court. Go on sidebartv.com. Listen to that latest clip from Nico on contempt of court. Really well done. Really good stuff. But that's where it started. So you were right. You predicted this was going to happen. It happened. And so that's an important, very important first step. And now there's a number of states, attorneys general, who have banded together to actually file lawsuits against
it depends if they do it. It depends after November federally. And it's up to the states how long as they're in office.
Yeah.
It depends who's in office.
Let's see what happens.
If November goes the way it seems like it's going to go, maybe not, then nothing's going to happen to them federally. I assure you.
I think for me, as a trained chemist, as a person who spent many years in pharma, for me, what was sort of most revealing is that this man was aware of the kinds of experimentation that were being done on bat-borne coronaviruses. He was aware of that. He knew where it was happening. He knew to what extent. He was part of the funding for it. And he sat there and acted like a complete dumbass. Like he had no idea. And then dismissed it. And then diminished it. Like it's some trivial thing that there's a concerted effort at the Wuhan Institute of Virology that has a history for the release of pathogens into society. I mean, this goes back years. For him to sit there and play stupid over that. And now, it came out this week, if you look at his diary, I think it's January 26th of 2020, he literally states that he believes that this was in fact laboratory born. And he goes back to the Chinese and said the Chinese dismissed it, but it seems obvious that it is. So this man knew from the get-go that the likelihood that this was a result of gain-of-function research, which is the addition or the enhancement of extra virulent properties on a virus. In other words, it makes it more transmissible, faster, and therefore more deadly. So he knew this was going on, Nico. He was part of that funding loop with third party.
But he benefited from it. They talk about a conflict of interest. He made money off this, and of course his arrogance and his haughtiness. I mean, he thought he was all these stupid little. I hope people just say, "Look, man, I mean, the action figure that I got of Fauci, I'm getting rid of it, man. I mean, just say I was wrong or whatever, or it's disgusting to see what he did. But then also he hid the fact that he potentially had a side effect to one of the shots that he took, the COVID shot. He had a heart.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, and he didn't want to.
I honestly didn't think any of them took the shot, really.
He did.
Yeah, it was a complication with his lungs. that was one of the symptoms that could be attributable to COVID vaccination. But she brought up that she said scientists say we need gain of function research. And again, he comes back and says the scientists that you say are experts cannot point to one instance in history where research that came out of this kind of experimentation provided us with any benefit. And that's absolutely true, because they claim to want to prepare for viruses that are going to show up later, when in fact what they're doing is setting the stage for bioweapon development. That's the issue, which is really what COVID ultimately became, a bioweapon.
Doug online said it's really hard to believe that we were no more prepared for COVID than we were for the Black Plague.
Well, the Black Plague was a legitimate issue of not being medicinally prepared. We would have been, the Constitution has given us all the tools, and that was Kennedy's argument, that had we actually, been constitutional practitioners as American citizens and demanded that from our politicians, the COVID debacle would never have happened. Yes, the virus would have happened, and it would have been addressed, and I think we would have frankly mitigated that in a couple of months, tops. You would have quarantined to the extent it was necessary groups of people that were clearly implicated because they were immunosuppressed in some way, and they were mostly older people above age 65. And so you would have done what we've always done. You would have identified the group that was most susceptible, and you would have had health policy targeted those individuals, and everybody else, it's live and let live. That's what should have happened. Okay, and had we simply doubled down on our constitutional rights and had our politicians double down on our constitutional rights, and we were kept our heads, that would never have happened. But everybody knew what the bullshit was about. It was about ultimately using it, and this is exactly what the Democrats did. Ultimately, it became about getting Trump out of office, and that's why Trump lost. COVID beat Trump, not Biden.
Well, so we got to talk about Hormuz, but my mom just texted me, said someone asked the meaning of this shirt. Jesus Speed 7.
Somebody did. That's right.
So,
That's
you're slacking. Mama LaHood's taking over your job.
It's okay. You can have it.
Yes, you can have this job. This is a phrase that my buddy Casey came up with. He's just on his own. It's not a company or anything. He just made a bunch of shirts. We know the term Godspeed, right? Yeah. Godspeed, wish someone well. I mean, may God prosper you. It's just kind of a term. We don't use it as much anymore. Older people do. I guess me, I'm one of them. Godspeed, wish you well in your journey. May God prosper you. He just says with Jesus speed, may Jesus prosper you. And then 7 is the number of completion. And so it's something that it's mean. So I like the way that they fit, and they're nice, and the meaning. So
I like it.
Yeah, a bunch of
looks cool.
So, yeah.
Tom says that the angry elephant is packed right now, and that's something that I told you. Ken Paxton is making an appearance there at the Angry Elephant right now.
Okay. Yeah, Ken needs to really focus on Talarico's ideas. He's going to have to. I would acknowledge his shortcomings, whatever they're criticizing him on, and just say, but it's not about me. I'll have to stand before God someday. I've had to deal with my wife, and I've dealt with my family, my children. And so that's me, and I'm far from perfect. But what this is about, it's about you. That's what I would do. I would turn it back. That's what you acknowledge, you take away someone's argument, and make it about the citizens and the ideas of Talarico. And what does that mean?
He is ahead in the polls, though, isn't he? Talarico is ahead in the polls. I just heard one this morning.
So was El-Sayed. Who knows?
It's within the margin of error. I mean, there's nothing dramatic, and some Paxton is ahead. So right now, it's way too ambiguous. That's the problem. Okay. I mean, it shouldn't be like this.
It shouldn't be this close.
No, it shouldn't.
Yeah.
But I mean, this isn't new territory. I mean, I think if you go back, who was it? Colin Allred and Ted Cruz a few years ago. It became kind of cozy with the polls there, only to discover that it wasn't the case. It's not to suggest we should sit on our ass. I mean, Paxton's got a lot of work to do, I think.
And that's good old Beto.
Ah, yes.
He barely.
Beto.
Ted
Cruz. I
squeaked
know.
out.
That was
Francis
too close.
O'Connor.
That was too close.
Oh, yeah. Way too close for comfort.
But is, I guess, cheating on your wife worse than saying Mary should have aborted? Or
cheating on your wife is a moral failure that can be dealt with some humility. I mean, this is an opportunity to be humble about it.
I had. It's a huge moral failure, but it's not politically, it doesn't mean how he's going to govern to other people. People say, well, you can't trust him with his wife, you can't trust him with us. Fair enough. I'll listen to that argument. I think that's legit. But you have to. Here's what I tell people: you have to prioritize your issues. I heard this wonderful example, and I thought it was a good example. let's say that someone's going to offer you land in the most beautiful place. Just say, I mean, California, for as screwed up as the ideology can be, it's beautiful land, right? It's a beautiful temperature, everything. That's why people have stayed there for so long. Say someone's going to offer you 5 acres on an ocean front, on a hill with a beautiful view and all the amenities, build the house the way you want to, or they offer you this house with a tennis court, swimming pool, all this other crap you want in there, but it has mold and black mold, or the mold that's dangerous to you. And that's the only thing wrong with the house. Would you buy that house and put your kids in there knowing that you're going to get sick?
No.
Okay, but it's only one issue.
Right.
But
Right,
but
you're
it's the
right.
most. So you prioritize that issue. As wonderful as everything else is, that one issue, and that's how I was with the border when it came to voting, and how I am now with this Islamization of America now. And so, because nothing else matters if you're black. All your wonderful views that you're not going to be able to see because you have to stay inside, coughing your lung out, and eventually die, that you enjoyed for 5 years instead of 35 years because you have mold in your home. I mean, so that one issue takes precedent over everything else. So that's kind of the analogy that I think people have to do with Ken Paxton. And this applies more to people that are independent because people that fall into the tribe, that they're going to just vote for Talarico just because they can't stand Ken Paxton. Don't vote for someone because you're against somebody. Vote for ideas. That's why I really direct people back to ideas. What ideas is Talarico advocating and want to implement on me? And will he follow them himself? And what ideas does Ken advocate? And then that's it.
This is, in a sense, you have to know what a foundational issue, though, is. Pervasive mold throughout a structure is a foundational issue, which is what you're making the claim of, which is true. So politically, people have to know that it's a foundational issue. Americans used to graduate from high school knowing what foundational issues were in the American constitutional system. Yeah, we actually knew that. So now politicians, good politicians, have to step up and teach and instruct. I mean, Paxton ought to be, like you said, going through Talarico's ideology to educate people on what the foundational issues are. For example, his trans ideology, how that's irreconcilable with Christianity. The idea of eradicating genders or gender fluidity.
Well, not even
and that
Christianity,
it doesn't
with
matter.
society.
Yeah,
I mean,
but I mean,
saying-
it's a foundational issue.
Oh, yeah.
You seed ambiguity into who you are, whether you're a male or a female. How do you think the rest of your life's going to look from there? So he needs to go to the core and say, this is an ideology that's crazy. It's based on delusion.
But the irony is overwhelming because the people that are upset and criticize him for wrongfully cheating on his wife don't even give a shit about the definition of marriage. So what do they care? You can be sexually, pervasive and do whatever you want. I mean, you can do it. And gender, they don't care about genders. They don't care about pedophilia,
exactly.
whatever. Not all of them. So I don't want to put them all in the same. But I'm just saying, like, so now you care so much about marriages? I mean, I always push back on your presupposition and what the idea, and is it consistent? Are you being consistent with it? And many times they're not, but that's the tribalistic mindset that comes
But
in.
Talarico's beyond that. I mean, male and female is fungible. So you got a person who touts confusion at that level. He can't be trusted with a damn thing. If you're confused at that level, you don't know what a male is and what a female is? Explain to me why the hell I should trust you with my pocketbook.
You'll let a kid see. Think about this, Karen. So you got to get deeper. If you advocate for the proposition that you'll let a child decide their gender, and take such serious steps as to have a gender, sex trans, whatever.
It's gender mutilation. That's what it is.
It is.
You do all that. Then where does that lead you to? Well, then a 10-year-old can consent to sex. Think. How can you not? How can you say that I can choose what I'm going to have on my body and what I can do with my body and who I can do it with? Think about that. I mean, so you have to really get deeper and push back on some of these presuppositions, and people don't do that, unfortunately.
But that's the ideology. Confuse the masses so you can control them.
Yeah.
Right?
Hormuz. What do you
Well,
want to talk
look, I mean, what can be said? We already have a memorandum of understanding. And I mean, this Hormuz deal is
What deal are we talking about, George?
Well, this is-
what does a deal even mean when it comes to Iran and when
yeah,
Trump
I
was
know.
trying to...
We throw the word around. It's like, what's actually... First of all, the United States isn't even part of it. That's why it sucks, because we're not part of it. And yet there are requirements or expectations of the United States. So this is between Oman and Iran. So basically negotiating a northern entry on the Iranian side and a southern exit on the Oman side. And if you look, I mean, if you hear Iranian media, some of the stuff that's being discussed as part of the deal is stuff that we would never agree to. The idea that Iran can exact tolls or the Iran can have oversight over the passage of ships. If they in fact end up with those things, we'll actually have gone back We've actually have given, they'll come out of this with more rights than they had
Anybody
before.
that criticize, I'm going to say this lovingly, so everybody get ready, put your coffee down so you don't spill on yourself. Anyone that criticizes Trump on this deal, and you're looking at two people that do it here,
He's going to go there.
don't defend it. Just don't defend that. I still agree with him trying to deal with Iran and Iran with their nuclear program, and it's a program. Obama paid for it. All this other stuff, we know that. So you can hate everybody all you want. I'm just telling you, Iran, you'll never go back if they get a nuclear missile. But no, they didn't plan. This is a huge example of failure to plan. And we can debate all day long whether it's because Pete Hegseth should have never left Fox and should never be the Secretary of War. That's a legitimate debate. Whether Bibi Netanyahu came down and spoke with Trump, and then 96 hours later they're moving assets from China over there. Okay, legit. I'm gonna look. Everything's on the table for me. But regardless what you say, this has been a huge debacle. The exit, the dealing with the Hormuz. How did you not see this? And this goes. He has the potential of going down as the worst foreign policy debacle ever. If that deal goes through, George, this is a huge disaster. This is not a game.
It truly is.
And I'm afraid that
truly
he's
is.
stressed out because of how it affects the market and the midterms coming up. And he's put himself in this unwinnable pickle that he may go along with it. And it will.
And for him to be pushing the deal like that, and which basically leaves the United States, well, I just created a weapon of mass destruction there.
Projectile pen.
Great pen. But for him to advance or to support a deal without really considering the impact on America. So this deal supposedly is sort of the first step for the next first step, which is to have discussions about Iran's
How many times have you seen that shit?
backing off of their nuclear aspirations. Sort of like the memorandum of understanding was a deal in search of a deal. So I don't understand the gain there to the United States. It's also incumbent upon the United States to remove their naval blockade. On what basis? It's also incumbent on the United States to remove sanctions from Iran. On what basis? United States Congress just voted for sanctions on Iran and Russia. So what is this about? This almost seems like a reverse of that, but it leaves the United States exposed because our objectives aren't being met. So I don't understand the point of it if in terms of how it helps the United States of America. And it actually seems to give Iran more rights than it had before. Iran has never had an officially recognized right to control that international waterway, ever. They've never had a right to impose tolls or to regulate.
George, what's going on? This is huge. I mean, this is such a big deal. And people, like last week, I know I read some comments like, take it easy on Trump and he's dealing with so much. I know I'm not going to take it easy on Trump. I'm not. I don't take it easy on anybody else. Why would I take? No one takes it easy on me. No one should be. We're not going to take it easy. Now I can give some grace for different things, but we've extended a lot of grace.
I don't know who he's listening to. It's weird. If it was just Trump, I don't think it would be conducted this way. I think he's listening to people who don't have a stomach to finish what they started. Look, if I had to summarize Trump's woes here on this, I would say it this way. Cover your ears. Win the fucking war already. Okay? You got in there, finish it. You just had a massive 2-week campaign. It's the only thing these rabid lunatics in the IRGC listen to. It's power and the threat of a military victory. That's it. Finish it already. I heard a little bit of discussion. I hope there was more discussion about literally taking these guys out, assassinating all of them. We have the means and the ability to do it. I don't understand it. Finish the fucking thing already. Win the war. I'm befuddled by it. And the longer this persists, the less credibility Trump's foreign policy has. This is crazy. I don't understand it.
It's crazy.
I mean, I'm befuddled. Yeah. He's listening to the wrong people. He needs to get in there and wipe these guys out ASAP. Because only then will Iranians actually feel like they can get out there and revolt. The IRGC leadership has to be wiped out.
But he just did these 2 weeks of attacks and then doing what with them? Now you're going to let off again? I mean, I don't understand this insanity. You know, the definition is doing the same thing over and over, then thinking you're going to get a different result. I mean, again, I don't know what he's doing, and I don't know what's happening, but I don't support this the way that's being handled.
This is a stupid deal. It's dumb.
Now, what do you do with this criticism? Does it mean I'm not going to vote for Trump or support Trump in other areas, or vote for a candidate that's a Republican or conservative?
Prioritize the issues.
Again, mold versus your view. Prioritize your issues. This is a big one, and I'm going to criticize the shit out of him because I want him to do better. And I want people that's going to advocate to do better, because what that does is, guess what turns that into a campaign? You support what Trump's done in Iran, and then so you're going to piss off your base which say no, and then you're going to lose independence. You're never going to get the Democrats for the most part unless you have a special talent. But I mean, then you're like in this pinball machine. That's why it matters, and why I want people to do better. Because I mean, it doesn't matter how people feel in their bubble. Screw your bubble. We don't live in a bubble, and if you do, good for you. But they're coming for your bubble. Get out there and you got to live life. And so you have to move the needle by influencing your neighbor. I want people that have disagreed with me to wake up and say, hey, you know what? I disagree with A, B, and C, but I'm still going to vote more this way for these ideas, because look what happened at the border. Yeah. Look what happened in the Valley. I'm curious where they're going to go this November. I'm curious. Have they rested on their laurels because now the border issue isn't an issue anymore? Now they get distracted by some other thing, a shiny object. I don't know. Yeah. And we'll see what happens, but I hope they don't.
And the very issue that Trump said he would never be distracted by all those years when he was criticizing the exact same policy on the Strait of Hormuz, he seems to be repeating. He seems to be a one issue. At the end of the day, it seems to be like a one issue thing, and that's the Strait of Hormuz and its impact on oil. And I think people are saying two things to him from the actions. Mr. President, concerned about how the polling is taking a hit here. People just don't really like war, and this is going on too long. And also the price of oil, I mean, it's spiking again. And so now this bears on your economic policy and economic polling. Oh, my goodness. And I think these things rattle. Trump follows the polls. This guy follows the polls closely. And I'm worried that he's managing a war to the polls. It's never worked before. It's not going to work again.
He's risking tarnishing forever his legacy.
That's the irony. He's going to make the polls
as much as his legacy is to him, to this guy. I mean, he's risking tarnishing. There is no golden age, right?
Not yet.
I mean, well, when do you think? How much more time, George? I know you give him a lot of grace, but how much more time does he have? I mean, shit. I mean, we're getting closer. We're already in August, September, October, and we're done.
This is a very sore subject for me. You know that.
I know, brother.
Because in the very beginning, I just felt like in terms of repatriating American economic might by bringing companies and onshoring them. I'm a big believer in a tariff policy. I thought it was an important deal. It really
it worked.
Certainly. The One Big Beautiful Act, I mean, I thought it was excellent in terms of economic policy. And those were seeds sown that into fertile soil. But they weren't watered. That's the problem. So then it was like we were ready to start a massive watering, and then he got.
Do you think there's
then he got detoured into Iran? I don't get
this question all the time, and I know we're going to wrap up, but do you think there's any validity to Bibi's visit with him 96 hours before they moved assets over into the region?
Well, he admitted, Rubio said, I mean, this was going to be a strategic partnership where they were going to lead, the air campaign was going to be led by Israel.
It seems so drastic. I mean, it just seems, I mean, where's the planning? Who?
Okay.
I mean, you know, and now we're left to do all
2 weeks before that, there were negotiations, as you remember.
Right.
Every one of those negotiations was ending the same way. We are, and this is what I mean, the Iranians were saying who they were. And I think Trump, and I think this worked. He wanted them to be out there saying what they were saying, so that when they would come in for the kill shot, people would say, "You gave him a shot."
Yep.
And they were saying, we're talking about over 1,000 pounds of enriched uranium. So they said, we're not going to give any of this up. We're not going to give our missiles up. In fact, we're going to keep doing it, they said. And so this went on and on and on and on. And finally, at the tail end of February, you saw what you saw. But I think they could read the tea leaves. They knew Iranians weren't going to back off, and they were preparing a military campaign.
Do you think they made a mistake taking out the Ayatollah?
No, they should have kept going. The problem is not finishing what you started. That was a huge blow to Iran when the Ayatollah was wiped out. Man, you went to the head of the snake. The problem is he left in place a bunch of other heads that need to be excised, and we didn't finish the fucking
George, and you
job.
probably can speak to this better than
crazy.
I can, but they didn't. They failed to plan for this Mosaic command structure that they have there in Iran. What I mean by that is that there's no need. They don't have this central command authority where you take out the leadership and the snake, you take off the head of the snake and the snake dies. They have this Mosaic command structure where they do this. If this happens, then that's why you have all these different pockets of leadership, and there's not one unity. So it's just like that's what they kept striking, and this person who's in charge, who we're negotiating with, and all, they didn't take that into consideration.
Yeah.
So
it's
such a debacle.
You have just the next lunatic ascends to position, kill him, the next lunatic comes up, and the reality is you got to focus on that leadership, and we have the means to do that. Israel certainly has the intel to do that. I mean, take advantage of that intel. Yeah. Mossad has had decades of preparation for these types of operations. Take advantage of that. I don't give a shit what your position is on Israel, but it sure comes in handy when you have an ally like that close by to take advantage of that intelligence. And look, say what you want about Israel, but they put their blood and sweat and tears into the campaign. So they weren't just coming in here and coordinating with America, and America's putting their own lives on the line. Israel's been doing that. So yeah, I do believe there was coordination, and rightly there should be. Mossad has great intelligence on Iran. Rightly they should, because they're on the front line of defense against them. And so yeah, I do believe that there was planning, and there should be planning. I do believe that Israel should carry their weight here, and I think they have. And I think Israel's chomping at the bit to finish the job. And we need to finish the job. How's this working out? How's this deal working out right now?
Yeah, brother.
Come on.
All right. Karen, that's it. That's it. We're happy.
That's it. Ask your mom if there's anything else.
Well, I don't know.
I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
Well, ask your mom, do you like my shirt?
Someone was
She didn't say
asking,
anything about my
mom-
shirt, man.
My mom doesn't give a shit about your shirt. But it was, so, all right, guys. All right, thanks for joining us. Really appreciate your comments. Please comment. Share this with people. As you said, like, share, do whatever. Follow us. I mean, that obviously will help. Have a very blessed weekend. Enjoy your families. God bless you. Bye-bye.